Fine artist, mathematician, scientist, and engineer. Quite an impressive range of subjects for one man to master. But what if I told you that his method of getting his great level of intelligence was mainly thanks to his very questionable sleeping pattern? What was that pattern and how could it have made such a big difference? How could sleep have anything to do with this in the first place? And does anyone else practice these tactics? And maybe you should too. The sleeping pattern that Leonardo da Vinci followed was a power nap once every 4 hours. He would sleep for 20 minutes, then work for 3 hours and 40 minutes, repeating this 6 times a day, totaling 2 hours of sleep. You might now feel very confused thinking how sleeping 4 times less than the recommended amount can turn someone into a genius. To this, there is a simple-brained answer. Well, he just had more time to study because he slept less, you would probably say. Now me, a self-proclaimed genius and master painter, will ask you, how does learning happen? For this, we will need to look at the learning process of a human. There are 3 types of ways in which connections in the brain can change or adapt. They are strengthening or weakening of neurological pathways and the creation of new neurological pathways. The steps are as followed. The information goes into the sensory memory in your brain, and if attention is applied to it, it will go into the short-term memory. After rehearsal of the given information, it will be encoded into the long-term memory by the process of strengthening a certain neurological pathway. I want you to now focus on that last part I mentioned, because this is the missing piece that we need for this video. Consolidation/learning, I should rather say, occurs the most during sleep or deep rest, like a power nap, for example. The recalling of the information in your sleep solidifies what you have learned during that given day. But my main problem is that short-term memory is very short, and every school in the world teaches their students during morning to evening times, which are as far away from sleep as possible. So now, I ask you, how much of the information will stay with you from 11 AM to 10 PM when short-term memory only lasts around a minute max? Seems like night schools would be a much better idea. Now that you're all caught up with the details, how did Da Vinci use this knowledge to his advantage? Let's say he studied for the first 3 hours he was awake, and after acquiring a certain amount of information, he takes a 20-minute power nap to consolidate the information. I have lately seen a lot of study with me videos and streams on YouTube where young adults study and cram-pack their brain with tons of information. 12 hours of study? That is like 4 Titanic movies. I don't think I know one person that would be able to watch the movie 4 times in a row, yet people try to cram all the information all at once. This is doubly stupid as research has shown that it is more effective to study something once than test yourself on it, rather than to read the same thing 4 times over again. My third problem with this method of learning is that let's compare this to a gym. And this is a great comparison because the brain is a muscle. You have people that do their sets and then proceed to do 50 reps of other bullshit, and you aren't really moving much volume, but the amount of fatigue you are creating is exponential and require way more recovery than otherwise necessary. And I am not a sports scientist, but pretty sure if you do 12 hours of bench pressing, you would probably create so much damage and fatigue that you would actually be better off not going to the gym. Too much information is junk information. That is why I think Leonardo's method is very smart and controlled. He structured it in a way that he would stress his brain just enough and sleep 20 minutes to recover and take the weight off the short-term memory to solidify it in the long-term one. Another notable person that followed the same sleeping pattern as Da Vinci was Nikola Tesla. He was quite a mystical person and wouldn't be surprised if he was a Freemason or a Jew. Regardless of this, should you consider hopping on a cycle of 20 minutes of REM? Nowadays, you're expected to work for 8 hours a day and can be tough to adjust your sleep if you have a life. But what can you take away from this? Because there is one important lesson I think everyone could benefit from. In my theory, we should try to study later at night or take a relaxation nap after 1 to 2 hours of study twice a day, for example. The aim of the game is to take as much of the information with us to sleep. To test this theory, watch a 1-hour educational podcast and afterwards, go for a 20-minute nap. Next day, Try to recall the information by explaining it to someone what the podcast was about. And the next day, watch another podcast, same in length, but afterwards, just carry on with your day, then test yourself the following day and compare how much detail you have retained between the two tests. Come back and share your results.